Hello and welcome to the next edition of the BriefingsDirect Voice of the Customer podcast series. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host and moderator for this ongoing discussion on digital transformation success stories. Hyperconverged infrastructure and virtual desktop infrastructure are combining to make one of the more traditionally challenging workloads far easier to deploy, optimize, and operate. As businesses of every stripe seek to bring more VDI to their end users and to make the digital edge a virtual playground for workspaces that support devices, HCI is proving a deployment backend architecture of choice. Now the benefits are being taken to manage cloud and hybrid cloud deployments as well. To learn more about the future of VDI powered by HCI and hybrid cloud, we're now joined by executives from two key players behind the solution. Please join me in welcoming our guests. We're here with Bernie Hannon, Strategic Alliances Director for Cloud Services at Citrix. Welcome, Bernie.
Nice to be here, Dana. Thank you.
We're delighted to have you. We're also here with Phil Saylor, Director of the Software-Defined and Cloud Group Partner Solutions at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Welcome, Phil.
Thanks, Dana. Good to be here.
Let's start with you, Phil. What are some of the trends and drivers that are making hybrid cloud something that everyone is talking about, and why that fits into what we think about solving sort of workspaces and mobility issues?
Yeah, sure. I think people are coming to a realization that the world is going to be hybrid for some time when you look at the IT landscape. There are definitely some attractive attributes of public cloud, but there are many customers that are not ready for it or are unable to move there because of where their data needs to be. And perhaps the economics don't even really work out for them. So there's still, I think, a lot of opportunity to improve on what we do in private data centers or in private cloud, and where private cloud implies bringing the benefits of cloud into the location of a private data center, right? As our executives say at HPE, right? Cloud is maybe someone else coined the phrase, but cloud is not it's not a destination. It's kind of the way that things get done or the way that you consume IT.
Mm-hmm. From your perspective, Bernie, how are hybrid cloud and cloud contributing to opportunity, but perhaps also to complexity?
Well, so, the promise of cloud has been that it would simplify everything, but in reality, I think everybody knows that things are getting more and more complicated. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that there's just an overwhelming amount of need for people to access applications. And the average enterprise is deploying like over 100 applications. And users who are increasingly mobile, remote, are trying to access all of these applications on all kinds of devices. They have all sorts of different ways of getting there, different login requirements, and when they do get in, there's all sorts of different performance expectations. And so it just becomes more and more complicated. For the IT organization, they're trying to deal with securing all those applications. And those apps are finding themselves up in clouds. They're on-prem. They're in so many different distributed organizations. And the more distribution there is, the more endpoints that they have to secure, it creates complexity. And complexity equals cost. And so really what we're trying to do is to find a way to be able to simplify things for real, to be able to address what IT is looking for, and that's to securely deliver apps, and for users to be able to have a simple work experience, be able to get what they need simply and easily from anywhere on whatever device they happen to be carrying with them when they do it, and be able to lock everything in within what we call a secure digital perimeter.
I think it's pretty clear what the end users want. Their expectations are very high. They're used to doing some things in their private life. They want to bring that into the workplace as well. But the IT operators need to be diligent. They need to be controlled. They have to think about security and compliance. So before we look at the VDI in a hybrid cloud environment, maybe we should separate what is the difference between a hybrid cloud and a private cloud. And why don't we start with you, Phil?
Sure. In private cloud, you're in a location that is it's obviously private. It's within the company's four walls, within their data center, within their control. But when you say private cloud, what you're implying is the benefits of cloud, the simplicity of operation, the ability to provision things, very easily, and maybe even tear down and reconstruct your infrastructure, and perhaps even consume some of those resources on pay-per-use basis, right? So kind of a different financial model that's involved as well. So usage and financial models are different, but it is private, and you have some benefits around security, I suppose, and maybe even the economics may work out depending on a variety of parameters we could get into if you like. Hybrid cloud is really a mix between taking advantage of the economics, I guess, and the flexibility that you get with public cloud providers. So you need to spin up some additional instances and resources for say a short period of time, a very bursty requirement, for example. You really can't beat public cloud in that case. I believe in what we're seeing in these environments. You may have a mix of both hybrid and private cloud, because your workloads will have different requirements between the burstiness of it and security and whatnot. So just everything across those 100 apps that Bernie mentions that are out there, there's still a variety of requirements. So we see, hybrid as being really the most prevalent situation.
Mm-hmm. And why is having that mix and choice a good thing when it comes to addressing these applications and also addressing the full desktop experience as VDI?
Well, and cloud's not one size fits all, right? So a lot of companies that originally started down the path of having just a single private cloud or utilizing a single public infrastructure as a service cloud have very quickly come to realize that they're going to need a lot of cloud. And that's why multi-cloud is really the emerging strategy. And the ability to be able to seamlessly provide companies the ability to be able to move their workloads where they need to. In some cases, that's driven by regulation, requirements, governance, data sovereignty, whatever it is. They need the ability to be able to put their workloads where they need to go, but more importantly, give users the ability to have a seamless work experience when they get into their workspace. They don't need to know where those apps are. They just need to know that they can find the tools they need to be productive easily and not have to navigate and try to figure out where stuff is, because that's a constant battle that just lessens productivity.
All right, let's dig a little bit deeper into how HPE and Citrix specifically are working together. I've seen some blog entries from both HPE and Citrix talking about the use of HPE with its SimpliVity HCI platform, along with Citrix cloud services. So we've been talking at an abstract level about cloud. Let's talk a bit more specifically. What is it about your products and your cloud that is seemingly a whole greater than the sum of the parts?
HCI, for the last several years, has really been adding a huge amount of value to customers that are deploying VDI. They've really simplified the entire management process down to a single management stack, reducing all that complexity. Generally, you don't need to have as much specialization now to deploy it. So we've got the infrastructure side dealt with. Now we're trying to deal with the app delivery side. And that has historically been very complicated. And so to address that, what we've done is package all of the control plane elements of running Citrix and put them up into a cloud and manage that as a service. So now we have Citrix as a service up in the cloud. We call that Citrix Cloud Services. We've got SimpliVity HCI on the premises side. And now what we need to do is to bring them together. And this is the secret sauce that has come together with SimpliVity. They have built some scripting and tools that automate the process for the customers that are ready to start using Citrix Cloud Services. And with just a few clicks, they're able to get the whole process initiated and start to deploy Citrix from the cloud onto SimpliVity and really make it simple, fast, and easy for customers to be able to take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm. Now, we've seen a lot of working in a hybrid cloud environment when it comes to new applications designed of, for, and by the cloud. But there's an awful lot of organizations that would like to lift and shift legacy apps and take advantage of this model. Is what you're doing together something that could lead to all sorts of apps, or what sorts of apps are the right fit for what you're describing? Phil?
Might be a good question for Bernie, as he's the one serving up the apps. And I do thank Bernie for plugging SimpliVity there and the simplicity of the infrastructure. Before I pass it to Bernie, though, I give Citrix a lot of credit for the vision that they've painted around hybrid cloud and taking that management plane and taking that complexity away from the customer, right? And that is singing right off our song sheet, right? When it comes to simplicity, we really want to move the legacy complexity that customers have seen, get them to where they need to go much faster, and then Citrix takes over and gets them the apps that they need. As far as which apps, I don't know that there are any restrictions to what you serve up. So, Bernie, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and Bernie, Citrix has been the bellwether on allowing apps to be delivered over the wire in a way that's functional. So this is going back 20 years. But are we going to take that same value that you pioneered from a client-server history and now extend it to the hybrid cloud?
One of the nice things about Citrix Cloud Services is that after we've established the relationship between the cloud service up in the cloud and the SimpliVity HCI on premises, everything is pretty much as it was before. All right, so we're not really changing the dynamics about how the application is being delivered. We're talking about how we're managing the environment and simplifying that process. Now, that said, Citrix brings a lot to the table to help customers modernize their apps, because that is a huge challenge for customers, and it always will be historically. Everything needs to be brought forward. And we have a lot of tools like app layering. That's probably one of the best ones that we make available. And for our customers that are Platinum, they get that automatically. And that's a fantastic tool for helping them in the process of taking applications that are traditionally premises-based, not virtualized, not available through app delivery, and package them in a way that they can be delivered and really amplify the value of being able to do hybrid cloud for VDI and app delivery.
And so I want to go back to my original question: which apps? All apps? What kind of apps may or may not be the right fit here?
Bernie, would you say that you can basically turn a traditional app into a SaaS app in a sense, right? That it's something that is delivered through the cloud, in a sense, not a traditional SaaS app that we might think of like a Salesforce or Asana or something like that. What are your thoughts?
Well, so good question. I would say that this is really something that is customer-driven. Our job is to make sure that when they want to take an application that has a traditional legacy app and they want to make it available to be delivered and either as a server-based app or they want to have it delivered as a virtual app on a virtual desktop, our job is to make that possible for them to be able to do that and to provide those tools to make that as easy as possible for them. Which apps exactly are the best ones to do? That's really looking at best practices, and there are a lot of forums out there that discuss which apps are better than others. I'm not personally an expert on trying to advise customers on you should do this app versus that app, but we have a lot of partners in our ecosystem that work with customers to help them package their apps, get them ready to be delivered, and they can help them understand where the benefits are going to be. Is there a return on investment for doing certain apps versus others?
But that's still quite an increase from what we hear from some of the other cloud providers, to be honest, right? The public cloud people make promises about certain apps and modernization, but when the rubber hits the road, not so much. You're at least moving that needle quite a bit forward in terms of it's up to you to decide which way to go.
Well, at the end of the day, just because you can doesn't always mean you should, right?
All right, let's look at this through the lens of use cases. What are some great examples? It seems to me a killer app for the app capability would be the whole desktop, the VDI. Let's start there. Where does this fit in? Perhaps Windows 10 migration? Where are there other areas where you want to use this hybrid cloud, SimpliVity on private, Citrix Cloud on hybrid, to get your whole desktop rationale process juiced up?
Tip of the spear is definitely Windows 10 migration. And a lot of customers, and frankly, there's still tens of millions of desktops out there that are in need of being upgraded. And customers at a real pivot point in terms of making a decision, do they continue down the path that they have been maintaining for, since the beginning, on supporting these desktops and physical, and making them available to users with all of the issues and risks that we hear about every day, and trying to balance the needs of users who, frankly, like their laptops and take them with them everywhere they go, and when they lose them, deal with the consequences. So what we need to do is to make sure that we get that balance of being able to give the IT department's the ability to deliver those Windows 10 desktops and the users that seamless experience that makes them feel as if they haven't lost anything in the process. They are trying to balance that out. So Windows 10, top of the list, absolutely. And the graphics requirements that go with Windows 10, being able to deliver that as well as part of the user experience is very, very important. This is where SimpliVity comes in, and partners like NVIDIA who help us virtualize those capabilities, and the users are still happy when they get their Windows 10 desktop.
To dwell just for a moment longer on Windows 10 migration, cost is always a big factor here. When you've got something like SimpliVity, with its compression, with its dedupe, with its very efficient use of a flash drive and so forth, is there a TCO story here that people should be aware of when it comes to using HCI to accomplish this Windows 10 migration?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at HCI infrastructure, you really have to do a TCO analysis. You know, when I talk to our sellers and our customers and ask them, why did you choose SimpliVity? Honestly, tell me. And it's overwhelmingly the ones that really take a close look at the total cost of ownership that will move to a SimpliVity stack in particular. When they're considering, HCI. So keeping the cost down, keeping the management cost down as well, and then having that ability to scale up and down that infrastructure as you need and protect your data all within the same framework, that same virtualized framework that you're used to. I mean, that pays off quite well for most customers.
We talked about protecting data, so security. What are some other use cases where you want to have control over that desktop? You want to have IP control, centralized management, and policy-driven management over assets. Tell us a little bit about how the hybrid cloud, private cloud, SimpliVity, Citrix cloud synergy works in regards to privacy and security.
Well, so the world is going remote, and users want to access their workspaces on whatever device they're most comfortable with. And IT is responsible for managing the policies and who's using what on whatever devices, and they have to manage all of those. So what we need to do and what we deliver at Citrix is the ability for these users to come in on any device they have and uniformly be able to provide the same level of security. And, when you ask the question about security, I would ask how much security is enough security, and the answer probably is there's never enough, right? And so security is really a huge driver for adoption of this hybrid cloud model because it allows you to be able to keep your apps and data under lock and key where you need them. On-premises is usually the answer we get. Put the management up in the cloud because that's where the ease of being able to deliver everything is going to occur. And then provide all of the great tools that come through a combination of Citrix together with SimpliVity and our partners to be able to deliver that user experience so that the security is there and the users don't feel like they're giving up everything in order for that experience, for that security to happen.
All right, let's pursue another use case where this might fit. Seems to me that moving your entire data center or significant portions of it to a modernized approach would be much easier if you could take everything and move it up into a public cloud, keep it there for a while, re-architect what you've got on premises, and then bring it back down, or at least decide what you'd want to have either on the private or the public side. So is there a hybrid benefit from the HPE and Citrix alliance that looks to a migration of infrastructure or a refresh of infrastructure benefit?
We know that a lot of customers are still using traditional infrastructure, and especially where VDI is concerned. So hyperconverged has been around for a few years, but not that many customers have adopted it yet. And as their infrastructure that they've deployed VDI on today begins to come to end of life, they're starting to make some decisions about whether or not they keep the traditional types of infrastructure that they have, or is this the time to move to hyperconverged? And more we're seeing customers of Citrix adopting hyperconverged, and at the same time, we're presenting the opportunity for them to think out of the box and go with the idea of being able to use a hybrid cloud model that gets the best of both the hyperconverged simplicity and then the ability to relieve the IT department of having to manage the Citrix environment and having to constantly do the updates and the patching and watch over all of those things. Let Citrix do that and let the customers get back to managing the things that are really important, and that's their applications, their data, and their security.
Speaking of management, we're seeing the need as complexity builds around hybrid models like we've been describing for a better management capability of, by, and for a multi-cloud and hybrid cloud environment. So we've heard quite a bit from HPE about OneSphere and then even OneSphere as a service, so GreenLake Hybrid Cloud. Is this an area where you think that the requirements of your customers and the alliance efforts between Citrix and HPE could also come together, so around a higher level cloud management capability?
Well, so, we've just stuck our toe in the water when it comes to hybrid cloud VDI and the relationship that we have with HPE as we're now deploying this Workspace appliance capability. But there is probably no end to the things that are possible after this. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is sitting down and starting to map out a roadmap of where do we want to go from here. We have to start looking at the capabilities that are inside of HPE that are untapped in this model. And there are a lot of them. Take, for instance, a recent acquisition of Plexi. All right, so now software-defined networking has the potential to bring an enormous amount of benefit to this model. We have to sit down and think about how can we apply that and then work together to enable that in this hybrid cloud model. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So
we'll be looking for more to come along those lines. Now, before we sign off, there was some news at the recent Citrix Synergy show, and there's been news at recent HPE shows. But let's talk, before we sign off, about specific products in the appliances space. What's been put together on an engineered basis that helps that simplicity to leverage SimpliVity and also take advantage of some of what Citrix has done? Tell us a little bit about these appliance products.
Sure. So what we've done through the Citrix Workspace Appliance program is to enable customers to really connect into that Citrix Cloud Services environment as easily as possible, right? And for us, we stuck with our traditional mantra of, the interface should just live where the customer, where the vAdmin normally lives, and that's, for us within System Center, Virtual Machine Manager, or within vSphere, depending on what your hypervisor choice is, right? So in both locations, we place a nice Citrix connector button right next to our own SimpliVity button, and within a few clicks, you're connected up into the cloud, and we just maintain that level of simplicity, so that even through the process of setting all this up, it's a very easygoing on-ramp to get connected into the cloud, and then that ease of management continues right through the cloud services that Citrix provides. So we have this available in tech preview here at HP Discover this week, and we'll be releasing later in the year. We'll have these plugins available for the public.
Last word to you, Bernie. Tell us a little bit about your vision for how that appliance approach really can be a go-to-market benefit, and how people should be thinking about ease in deployment.
So I think at the end of the day, customers are looking for options. They don't want to be locked in. They want to know that their journey to the cloud, as Phil said, is not a destination, right? It's a journey. But they're all going to go at their own pace. And they'll adopt cloud. In some cases, they'll do it wholesale. In others, they'll do it in small little steps. And what we see these kinds of appliance capabilities and adding these features into them is giving customers choices, so that they don't have to make a choice when they get to a fork on the road about making a decision. Do I go hybrid cloud? Now, do I have to abandon all this infrastructure I have? Now, your infrastructure is going to be able to take you on that journey to the cloud, and that's already built in. And we need to continue to make those capabilities integrated, built in, and make it possible for customers to be able to just elect to go in that direction when they're ready, and that infrastructure will be simplified and enable that to happen.
Well, very good. I'm afraid we will have to leave it there. We've been exploring how HCI and VDI are combining, and being a traditional challenge of VDI, it's becoming easier to deploy, optimize, and operate through hybrid cloud models and appliance models. And we've seen how HPE and Citrix have aligned to extend the value of hybrid cloud via these appliances for a variety of high-priority use cases. So please join me in thanking our guests. We've been here with Bernie Hannon, Strategic Alliances Director for Cloud Services at Citrix. Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you very much. It's been great being here.
And we've also been joined by Phil Saylor, Director of the Software Defined and Cloud Group Partner Solutions at HPE. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Dana. My pleasure.
And a big thank you to our audience as well for joining us for this BriefingsDirect Voice of the Customer Digital Transformation Success Story discussion. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host for this ongoing series of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise-sponsored interviews. Thanks again for listening. Please pass this along to your IT community and do come back next time.